Well, today's a great day to freeze one's ass off. So instead of sitting in a boring home studio, I thought I'd take you on a tour of the island I live on, whilst doing a long-term review of this, the Sony 50 to 150mm f2 GM. I got this lens about 8 months ago, and I've had a lot of fun with it and photographed a lot of fantastic people. And I use this lens for about 80% of my photos, or perhaps more. But there's a big but. The vast majority of those photos could easily have been taken with a 70 to 200mm f2.8. And that's why I feel like making this long-term review. It's definitely the perfect lens for me and what I do, but it's not the perfect lens for everyone. And unless you're going to utilize all the special features of this lens, it could end up being a big waste of money. I live on the island of Fyn, more or less in the middle of Denmark. To the west you can cross a couple of relatively small bridges going to Jylland or Jutland, the main land sticking up from Germany. And to the east you can cross a relatively large bridge and go to Sjælland or Sealand, the largest island in Denmark with the capital Copenhagen on it. I'm right next to that large bridge by the city of Nyborg or Newcastle. And today we're gonna drive down the eastern coast of Fyn and see how far we get. Today's a relatively calm and warm day, but we have had freezing temperatures blowing from the east for a long time. And a lot of cold water has been blowing up on land and creating a lot of ice. And I'm hoping we can get to see some of that today. As usual, I've made chapters down below, so if you do find me ranting too much about snow, ice or local attractions, feel free to skip to the next chapter or the conclusion in the end. For several months after getting the Sony 50 to 150mm f2 GM, I kept my 70 to 200 f2.8 GM2 with two teleconverters. I didn't really use them, but I was anxious about selling them, afraid that I would miss out on the flexibility. But eventually I sold them, and I haven't looked back since. I haven't missed that lens and the teleconverters. Well, right now we're at a place called Strandløst Strand, which can be translated into beach lust beach or beach desire beach. There isn't as much ice here as I had hoped for, but we'll continue down the coast and see if we can find some more. I know it looks as if I've been attacked by a mountain fox, but there's a perfectly good, well, at least there is an explanation to that. Some years ago I thought I would get into wildlife photography, and of course the first thing I did was to hurry out and buy a lot of expensive gear. Turns out I can't really tell the difference between a duck and a deer, and I prefer to photograph people instead. But now I'm stuck with all this gear, and on a day like today I bloody well need to use it, which is also one of the reasons why we're out here today. Well, we're at a place called Lundeborg now, which I have no idea how to translate into English, but it looks like we're in luck, so let's go and have a look. I won't be getting into all the specifications, there's already a ton of videos out there about them, but I would like to mention a few of the characteristics I really like. It's an internal zoom with a very short zoom throw and The ability to zoom fast and accurately with just a thumb has worked really well for me. It weighs 1340 grams, which is about 28% heavier than the 70-200 GM2. But I haven't had any issues working with it hours on end. Whether it has to do with a different balance or me being stronger than an average Scandinavian, I don't know. But it's probably not the latter. It is a bit more chubby than the 70-200, but I haven't had any problems fitting it into my bag. The only thing is the lens hood. If you leave it on the lens like this, it does become quite wide, and then it becomes an issue fitting it into your bag. And the lens hood itself is also very wide to fit into your bag, so you can't place it like that in the bag. You need to put it like that, and then it suddenly takes up a lot of space. It's not a big thing, but it's not something I had considered before buying the lens. I'm gonna get myself some soup now, just to get something warm. So this is reindeer soup, but I guess since Christmas is over, we can eat Rudolph by now. While we wait for the soup, we can talk a bit more about the lens. Several years ago, I got myself the PhotoPills app. It's useful for many things, and it would take an entire video to mention them here. But today I'll just focus on the subject distance. It can help to determine a distance to a subject depending on the focal length and the height of the person. I've made a lookup table, and I'll try to explain what I'm trying to show you. If you, for example, are doing a close-up at 50mm, you'll need to be about a meter away. But if you do a full person at 50mm, you need to stand around 5 meters away. So from close-up to full size, a 50-150mm lens works very well from between about 1 to 16 meters. And a 70-200mm lens works well between 1.5 meters and 21 meters. And for example, a 200-600mm lens will need a lot of space from between 4 to 63 meters. If you're shooting vertically, you can get about 30% closer, and if you're photographing large groups, you can be around 50% further away. This is all meant for people. If you're shooting small birds, it's a whole nother story. About 10 days ago, I went to photograph a concert at a music venue in Odense named Posten, or the Post, since it used to be an old parcel post office. The stage is about 10 meters wide, and to capture it all at 50mm, I had to stand 14 meters back. But with a 70mm lens, I would have to be about 20 meters away. That is something to take into consideration if you're buying a lens to photograph indoors, sport, concert, and so on. 2 bands performed, and I photographed them both using my 50-150mm f2 on my Sony A9 III and my Leica Q2 monochrome with its 28mm f1.7 Summilux lens. The Leica performed really well, but let's focus on the 50-150 f2. The zoom range and the f2 aperture just excelled. The light varied a lot, and at times it was very dark, but the Sony combo just kept up. Well, let's see if the soup is ready. Perhaps you should get your kids to look away now. Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's quite good. Can it replace the primes? The 50mm, the 85mm and the 135mm primes from Sony? Well, it would be cheaper getting that lens instead of the 3 primes. It would also weigh less in your camera bag and maybe take up a little less space. Sorry, I need to concentrate. When it comes to bokeh, there will be a slight difference, but I'm not very interested in bokeh. I'm more interested in low light capabilities, so it's not something I would miss. When it comes to low light capabilities, the 135 millimeters is an f1.8, so the difference probably won't be big. But the other primes, the 50 and the 85 millimeter f1.4, they will have better low light capabilities. And if you have the 50 1.2 like me, there will definitely be a big difference in low light capabilities. We're not on Fyn anymore, but on an island very close by named Tåsinge. Yet another weird Danish name. And there's a lot of estates on Tåsinge, on Fyn, like the one behind me, because the soil is very fertile and has generated a lot of wealth through centuries. I recently read a book about a Dane that lived 400 years ago named Corfitz Ulfeldt. And he was also from some of the estates here on Fyn. And he ended up becoming the son-in-law to the Danish king, Christian IV. And he was given a lot of privileges. And he used and abused all these privileges to gain a lot of wealth and a lot of power. But that was more than 400 years ago. And luckily now we're blessed with a lot of perfect democracies around the world. We're reaching the end of this video and it has started to snow. But before we finish off, I would like to talk about some of the pros and cons of this lens. One of the cons is definitely the price, and another one is the lack of a teleconverter. I don't know if I will use a teleconverter, but I would like to have the option. The teleconverters that Sony offers now are about 10 years old, so they might be due for an update soon, and perhaps they will be able to fit this lens as well. Or the pros are kind of everything else. It has a very fast autofocus, it's a very sharp lens, it has a beautiful bokeh, and it performs very well in low light. This is a very good lens. It's very suitable for low light events ranging from about 1 to 25 meters. But it's also a very extravagant lens. And if you're not going to take advantage of the f2 aperture and you don't need the specific zoom range, I would recommend you spend your money on a 70-200 f2.8. And with the money you save, you can almost afford a 24-70 on top of that. If you want the same bokeh as this one with an f2.8, take a few steps back and zoom in a bit more and no one will be able to tell the difference. But if you need the specific zoom range and the low light capabilities, I assure you, you will appreciate this lens. I hope you enjoyed this alternative long-term review and the guided tour of the winter landscape of my local region. Please consider hitting the like button and perhaps subscribe as well. As usual, I have saved a few of my top picks till the very end, taking with the Sony 50-150mm f2 GM lens. See you around.